5:50 left to play in the third period. The New York Giants 2nd and 7 from their 43. Again, Johnson, 45, 50, 45, down to the 40 to the 38-yard line before Charlie Waters made the stop.
Well, hello. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to check out this video, and welcome to the Gridiron. And before I get started, I just want to say thank you to everybody out there who's watched my videos, subscribed to my channels, maybe give my videos a thumbs up, or maybe left a comment, anything at all. I greatly appreciate it. I'm just trying to get my channel up and running, and anything you can do for me and my channel, I greatly appreciate it. So thank you so much. 1929 NFL season. It's the 10th season in the history of the NFL, but it's the 5th season in the history of the New York Football Giants. In 1929, all right, there was 12 teams. Now, every year the Giants were in, this is the 5th year, every year the Giants were in, there was a different amount of teams every year. The first year they were in it, in 1925, there was 20 teams. 1926, it went up to 22 teams. 1927, it came down to 12 teams. 1928, it went down to 10 teams. And this year, in 1929, it went back up. There was 12 teams in the league. And those 12 teams are, all right, the Green Bay Packers, the New York Giants, the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets, the Chicago Cardinals, the Boston Bulldogs, the Staten Island Stapletons, the Providence Steamroller, the Orange Tornadoes, more on them in a minute, the Chicago Bears, the Buffalo Bisons, the Minneapolis Red Jackets, and the Dayton Triangles. God, I love that name, Dayton Triangles. Imagine it, I guess the insignia on the side of their helmet would be a triangle. Anyway, it was the same thing. I mean, as it was in the past, you had to make your own schedule. There was no set amount of games. It wasn't like a 16-game schedule, or this year, for the NFL, 17-game schedule. There was none of that. Teams played all different amount of games. It seemed like every year the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets led the league in the amount of games played. This year, in 1929, the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets played 19 games. The Dayton Triangles played 6 games, and those 6 games they scored a whopping 7 points. The Buffalo Bisons played 9 games. The New York Giants played 15 games. I mean, the Green Bay Packers played 13 games. I mean, it was just, there was no set amount. It was just, every year the amount of games the teams play are different. The past couple of years the Giants had played 13 games. This year they played 15. It is what it is. There was a rule change they had this year in the NFL in 1929. They added the field judge as the 4th game official. A couple interesting things happened in the 1929 season. The Providence Steamroller hosted the first ever night game against the Chicago Cardinals on November 6th. They played under like floodlights, but they played a game at night, and the Chicago Cardinals won 16-0. Also, a record which still stands today. All right, Ernie Nevers on November 28th of 1929 scored 6 rushing touchdowns against the Chicago Bears. He scored every touchdown that day. They beat the Chicago Bears 40-6. Ernie Nevers counted every point. He scored 6 rushing touchdowns and kicked 4 extra points. So he's accounted for 40 points. The 40 points is a record which still stands today, alone, all by himself. The 6 touchdowns, all right, has been tied, 3 other times. But the 6 rushing touchdowns was just tied last year by Alvin Kamara of the Saints against the Vikings. But the 40 points in a game is a record from 1929, which still stands today. The Giants, they rebounded. 1925 and 1926, they won 8 games each season, which was pretty good. 1927 they won their first NFL championship, and they won 11 games. 1928 they won 11 games. They won 11 1-1 in 1927, and then they went to 4-7-2 in 1928. Their offense was horrible, absolutely horrible. So what happened was, after the 1928 season, Tim Mara, the owner of the New York Giants, what he did, he went out and he bought right, the Detroit Wolverines, which were a pretty decent team. In 1928, I believe they were 8-3. They wound up in third place, and they scored, I believe, the most points in the NFL that season. They had a very good offense, basically because of Benny Friedman. He was like the man back then. Okay, he could kick, he could run, but he could throw. He was the leading passer, all right, in the NFL in 1929. So Tim Mara bought the Detroit Wolverines, and he merged the two teams together, the Giants and the Wolverines. Basically, I don't know how many team players from the Wolverines made it on the Giants other than Benny Friedman. That I don't know. But I do know Benny Friedman was the prized possession, and he helped the Giants, especially their offense, really turn things around. They were in 1929. The Giants were first in scoring. They scored 312 points. They averaged 20.8 points per game. 1928, they scored 79 points. They went from 79 points to 312 points, thanks to Benny Friedman. Their defense, got better as well, too. In 1928, they gave up 136 points, which is not that good. But it went down. It went down to 86 points. So they sliced 50 points off their defensive total for the year. So they did pretty good. Plus, not only that, but they played an additional 2 games. So their defense got a lot better in 1929. But it was their offense that was really what set the tone for the New York Giants that year. Benny Friedman, okay, the quarterback, and they really didn't have quarterbacks. They were all kind of like halfbacks. And it's just that one of them, just wound up throwing the ball, and that was Benny Friedman. He led the league in passing with a whopping 985 yards passing. He led the league. But he had 20 touchdown passes. Now just think about this. Say it was 985 yards passing. I just round it out to 1,000, okay? He had 20 touchdown passes. Guys nowadays are throwing for 5,000 yards. At that rate, what Benny Friedman did in 1929, guys today would have to throw 100 touchdown passes in a season to basically do what he did there. So basically, right, out of every 1,000 yards, you got to throw 20 touchdown passes. I mean, wow. Basically, every 100 yards passing, you got to throw 2 touchdowns. That's amazing. He had a heck of a season. The Giants' defense, as I said, was very good. They played 15 games. They posted 8 shutouts. Their offense, as I said, was by far and away the best. I think the Packers were second best. They had like 196 points or 198 points, so they were far second. The Giants won games such as against the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets. They beat them 32-0. They beat the Buffalo Bisons 45-6. They beat the Chicago Bears 34-0. Then they beat the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets again 31-0. So I mean, they could put up some points. The season didn't start out too good. All right, they went on the road and they tied the Orange Tornadoes 0-0 on September 29th, 1929. Now the Orange Tornadoes, I'm not sure if it's Orange City or if it's Orange County, but it's up by New York. It's like about 20 miles from New York. So that's where Orange is. I'm like, Orange? I'm like, what? So I was looking it up. So they were also, at one point, also known as the Newark Tornadoes as well. So Newark is up by New York as well. But so the Orange, that's where the Orange is. It's Orange County, Orange City, which is, North Jersey, right? About 20 miles. Actually, it's probably closer, maybe about If you fly straight as the crow flies, it's about 15 miles to New York City. So the Giants tied, the Orange Tornadoes 0-0 on the first game. So the Giants didn't start off too well. But then they won their next 8 games by a score of 204-29. I mean, they would just dominate. Then came the big game of the season. This would be the one pretty much to decide the title. All right, because remember, there's no playoffs. Whoever has the best record at the end of the season, they're the winners. All right, so on November 24th, 1929, at the Polo Grounds, in front of 25,000 fans, it rained intermittently, nothing, no heavy deluge or nothing, but, it did rain, which kind of hurt the Giants because the Giants were more of a passing team than the Packers were, so it kind of hurt the Giants a little bit. But the Giants came into the game at 8-0-1, and the Packers came into the game 9-0-0. So basically, whoever, unless it was a tie, but if one of the teams lost, they were in second place, and the way things just happened to be going, whoever wound up winning this game was going to win the championship. So in the first quarter, the Packers scored, and they made it 7-0. In the second quarter, Benny Friedman completed a long pass down around the 10-yard line of the Packers. Unfortunately, what Benny gives, Benny takes away as well. So right after that, he threw an interception, so the Giants' drive failed. If they could have scored on that one, could have possibly turned the whole season around on that one drive. But so at halftime, it was 7-0. The Giants scored in the third quarter on a Benny Friedman to Polanski 15-yard touchdown pass. Unfortunately, they missed the extra point, so they were losing 7-6 going into the fourth quarter. The Packers in the fourth quarter scored 13 points and pretty much put the game away, but one of the things was the Giants were pressing, and it was another interception, which led to another, not directly but indirectly to another Packer touchdown, but because the Giants had to throw the ball to try to catch up. But I mean, I said if they had scored in the second quarter when they were down to the Packers' 10-yard line, if they could have gotten a touchdown or maybe a field goal, things might have been different, but they weren't. The Packers wound up winning, scored 20-6. So after the game was over, the Packers were 10-0-0 and the Giants were 8-1-1. The Packers only played 3 more games. Their next game, after this game here against the Giants, the Packers went on the road and played the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets to a 0-0 draw. So that was the only blemish on the Packers' record because the Packers wound up winning their last 2 games 25-0 and 25-0. So the Packers wound up 12-0-1. The Giants wound up 13-1-1. So the Packers won the 1929 NFL Championship. It gave the Packers their first NFL championship. They were certainly, the best team. There was only, they only had 1 tie, and the only game that they played that was kind of close was the 6th game of the season. They beat the Chicago Cardinals by a score of 7-6, and the Cardinals missed the extra point, or that game could have been a tie as well. But the Packers really never were much of a threat of really losing any games, so they were definitely the best team in the NFL that season. And this was the Packers' first championship, and the Packers would go on to win the next 3 championships in a row. They would win 29, 1930, 1931. And not only that, they would go on, so they had a three-peat. But they also did it again in the 60s. 1965, 1966, and 1967, they won the NFL championship too, under the great coach Vince Lombardi. Well, as always, guys, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to check out this video. You guys stay safe out there, and go Giants! Woo!